anytime I commit to a vision, building a business, achieving whatever outcome, relationship, whatever, what arises on the journey I see as valuable as the destination. And this also allows me to remain in my flow and see things to be in harmony and in contribution to my vision, rather than holding me back, which is really an illusion. So when I look at it through the lens of the spiritual alchemy process, I don't run away or pretend like challenges don't exist. Rather, I transmute them. In the book Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he speaks about how we can experience flow in a nice sweet spot where challenge meets skill. Let's say to one person, they might perceive something as an obstacle, and another person might perceive that same thing as an opportunity. For example, during a business deal, let's say if the other person did not want to move forward with the deal, one person may consider that to be an obstacle, in which they say, because this deal is not moving forward, I won't be able to achieve whatever business goal, certain amount of income per month, per year, whatever it is. The other person might see it as an opportunity. They might say, you know what? This person doesn't appear to move forward with the deal. Yet, there is something right here, which, if I see it, will help me move forward towards whatever it is, certain amount of income per month or year. And sure enough, they see it because they believe that even if something appears to be an obstacle, they're relating from within through belief and seeing it a particular way. If they see it a different way, they see it as an opportunity, sure enough, it will appear that way. Let's say the deal didn't go through. They then say, you know what, this is interesting, because the prospect mentioned something that they were having challenge with, and I didn't communicate in the conversation that the product or service that I have can help them overcome that challenge. I just didn't communicate it. So I'm going to call them up later on, and I'm going to say, you know what, I forgot to mention something. I forgot to mention how what I'm offering actually helps you with that thing, that other thing that you had mentioned. And then they might say, well, how so? And then they share with them how so. Perhaps it was a feature that they had in their product or service that offers a benefit to that prospect, which that benefit was what they were looking for. So by seeing opportunities where others would see it as obstacle, they then acquired that client. That's one of my examples in my business dealings, and I built 3 successful businesses, and I've seen this a number of times. Now, here's the wonderful thing. You eventually get to a point of absolute certainty that no matter what situation you are put in, some way, somehow, the way will be revealed. Some way, somehow, we will always find a mutually harmonious deal. Even if it doesn't mean that we move forward with this deal, it could be another deal. For example, a prospective client can become a referral partner. If it's not a match to buy your product or service, they enjoyed the conversation so much with you that they make a recommendation to one of their friends who appears to have that challenge that your product or service appears to solve. And so, by being in flow, a person can see this very clearly. I related this to, actually, in Tuesday's video as living meditation. What appears as a distraction or an obstacle if not identified with in the moment, being neutral to it, allows us to then see the opportunity. It happens automatically while we're in the flow. Now, to experience this more often, in increasing frequency on a continuous basis, where we're able to maintain that presence in the moment, understanding what is going on through the lens of the 7 stages of spiritual alchemy can be very helpful during these kinds of interactions. The same is to be said about personal relationships. If a person meets someone, they go on a date, they really like them, maybe they're waiting for a phone call for the next date, yet the person didn't call them back. So now they start imagining what that means in an inharmonious way. In that moment, they have an opportunity to release that potential identification, as in don't identify with that imaginal act. Because if one identifies with that imaginal act, it can end up being what we refer to as a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've seen this many times. In the earlier stages in my dating life, I would imagine these things and they would play out. Then when I did not imagine those things, I let them be. It continued to play out in a harmonious way. One could say that's a way of being which we could relate over to personal magnetism. We've been discussing personal magnetism, and I'd mentioned that being as you are, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, automatically manifests as what someone would call, if they were observing you, as a magnetic person, being magnetic, not seeking approval, validation, or confirmation of being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Rather, that appears that way, reflected as the different experiences in the relationship. So the spiritual alchemy process gives us mental clarity so we can understand what's going on within, essentially what has been associated to the one universal cause within I am, so that we can relate to what appears ideally from being, true way of being, flow, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and thus purify the mind to that degree. So consider then the 7 stages of spiritual alchemy as a way of relating to what I refer to a lot as mind purification, which happens on the journey to actualizing a vision. It happens on the journey to actualizing the vision, so we can see and relate to the different experiences through the 7 stages of spiritual alchemy, and then it's experienced as more flow-based, because we bring awareness to and we understand what's going on within, and what that within, the subconscious mind, that has been identified with, is resulting in the appearances of seeming failure, seeming obstacles, etc. And so I learned this on my journey of self-realization, self-actualization. And by that I mean, in 2004, I picked up a copy of Think and Grow Rich. And my goal, my definite chief aim, which is a vision, he refers to it as definite chief aim in the book. I recently did a 3.5-hour discussion on the book. I'll link in the description to it. My definite chief aim was to get out of $50,000 debt at that time. That was my first definite chief aim. And by following the principles in the book, primarily the autosuggestion chapter, the subconscious mind chapter, and the sixth sense chapter, the debt cleared out. And not only did I get out of debt, I also ended up saving and buying my first house. And then I applied the philosophy and continued to refine my understanding of the philosophy, because all of this that we are discussing is pointing to the same thing. Pointing to the same thing, which is the cause and substance of the entire phenomena of life. I am. And so, what do we say of that I am within, consciously or subconsciously? We consciously know based on our thoughts and what we're relating to the various experiences in our life, but we might not know what has been identified with in the subconscious mind. If we bring awareness to what has been identified with in the subconscious mind, by simple being as you are, and not identifying with those thoughts that spawn from the beliefs identified with, or in relation to the appearances which are reflections of the belief identified with, thus regenerating those same experiences, then mind is purified. So after actualizing that definite chief aim, I had the next definite chief aim, the next definite chief aim, my first business, my second business, my third business. Every definite chief aim that I set was actualized. And what really helped me understand to a deeper degree what was going on the journey to actualizing each of those visions, which was the mind purification, which brought forth clarity, self-realization, understanding the true nature of self. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and actualizing it in and as the various experiences of life as the destination, as well as the different aspects and appearances of people, environments, experiences, etc., on the journey to actualizing the vision. That all occurred upon relating to the experiences, ideally with the spiritual alchemy process, which served as a guide. It's like having a counselor, even if the person's not there with you. So you could look at the various experiences and via the still small voice within, receive that clarity in relation to the experiences and relate to them ideally to transform, as said in Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now, the New Living Translation has it articulated very precisely in relation to our conversation here, which is revealing what is going on during the spiritual alchemy process on the journey to actualizing the vision, in which it says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So let's explore the 7 stages of spiritual alchemy and relate it over to Romans 12:2, which brings us to the realization that we are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Thus, there's nothing wrong with you for desiring to actualize your vision. Nothing wrong with you. No shame, no condemnation, except you are that. And allow it to happen, which through allowing, living meditation, purifies the mind and results in the experiences of knowing thyself. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Calcination, otherwise referred to as the black stage. Black represents chaos, that which is hidden and buried, subconscious. So when one commits to a vision, they may be met with fear, doubt, uncertainty. The emotional response of fear is the result of belief identification. For example, if someone desires to start a conversation with someone and they have no fear of criticism, let's say, they start that conversation. They walk right up to them and start that conversation. If they're identified with a belief, which we can call criticism, they believe if a person says something which they perceive as negative, then they are not accepted. they may, as a result of that belief identification, experience fear. If that belief was not identified with, they would not experience fear. For example, on my journey of public speaking, in the earlier stages, 2010, I would teach these speed reading workshops on behalf of Iris Reading. And leading up to these workshops, which are done on Saturday and Sunday, fear would start, and then it would turn into anxiety Thursday and Friday. And through understanding what was going on, that it was belief identification, and more specifically and accurately, particular beliefs that were generating that experience of anxiety, which was not helpful. It was generating unnecessary resistance, which was tiring when it comes to public speaking, because I genuinely desire to speak publicly. I genuinely desire to share that information in the workshops. Yet you could say I was holding myself back subconsciously. No shame, no condemnation. We release identification to it. I was aware of it. I changed my self-talk. What did I say? Well, I brought awareness to beliefs like, for example, people would not accept me the way that I am. So I put together some auto-suggestions. People accept me the way that I am. I feel it more so in each interaction with people. With every presentation, I experience it easier and easier, and I feel even more natural as people accept me for who I am. Thus, acknowledging I am that. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So what ends up happening then? That appeared that way. Now, when I say that appeared that way, consider this. I say this, which again is a realization that occurred recently. I've been saying it more. It occurred as a realization during this journey. Every vision I committed to, actualizing that vision. Another vision I committed to, actualizing that vision. Another vision I committed to, actualizing that vision. Remaining committed to it. Mind was purified. Flow became the norm. From the moment I wake up till I go to sleep, flow state, because mind is purified to the degree in relation to the different aspects of the journey, which was once related to via beliefs in my subconscious mind to be experienced as obstacles or stress-based or force-based. And having released that, I also came to the realization of Exodus 3:14, which is, "And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you." That there's only God, and only God appearing, and God appearing to animate all that appears through my mind. Well, why would I say that? If I look at another passage, Joshua 1:3, it says, "Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses." Only God appears, and appears as all that appears. And so what do I mean by God appears through mind? Well, what do we do in mind? Romans 12:2, we think in mind. The question is, are we thinking for ourselves? Or are we thinking, in a way one could say, based on what others are thinking? Well, actually, others are playing out the beliefs that we're identified with. So to be more accurate, are we thinking in relation to the past in an inharmonious way? Or are we thinking ideally from our vision by listening exclusively to that still small voice that speaks of vivid clarity from the silence, which guides you on the journey to actualizing your vision? So then the other passage, Romans 12:2, makes sense. Again, the New Living Translation. "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world," and that's because this is the world of the past imaginings playing out, "but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. The still small voice provides everything. Vivid mental clarity in relation to what appears on the journey to actualizing your vision. Steve Jobs said it also in his commencement speech, which I used to listen to over and over again while I was building my IT business from 2009 to 2013. He said, don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. So others' opinions, past beliefs playing out, if they're helpful, that's fine. If they're not helpful, no shame, no condemnation. Think for yourself. Think ideally by listening to that still small voice, that inner voice in relation to your vision. And mind is purified and you remain in your flow. So, calcination. Perhaps some of these subconscious beliefs are brought to awareness. Autosuggestion. Clear it up. Remain in your flow. We move into dissolution. This is where, again, we'll see this as a pattern on the spiritual alchemy process, which is where we have not allowed God to take care of it, which is experienced as control or attachment is brought to awareness. So we can feel it, actually. I can feel it in my body if I'm trying to control. I simply release the control, relax back into the flow. And it also releases identification to the beliefs. If the beliefs seem to be persistent, then I bring awareness to those beliefs and I change them with autosuggestion. And by change them, I mean suggest, plant in mind the thoughts of the true way of being, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And mind is purified from those false beliefs that are not true and authentic. And what happens? Flow. For example, let's say if something appears as a challenge, and by the way, in the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he talks about one of the ways of getting into the flow is where challenge meets skill. So the spiritual alchemy process is one of embracing challenge, embracing chaos, rather than pretending like it doesn't exist or trying to run away from it. The embracing of the chaos by simply relating to the experience in an ideal way allows the mind to be purified as well as emotions to be released, and you get to enjoy wonderful life experiences. For example, if I never embraced the chaos of what I was experiencing on the way to teach those workshops, I would not have had physically experienced, the wonderful experiences from teaching those workshops for many years. And the degree of confidence and also congruence and ease, we could say, when it comes to other initiatives that involve communication, because I released through the spiritual alchemy process. It was brought to awareness through dissolution, where I was avoiding looking at those particular beliefs because I was afraid of them. There's nothing to fear in mind. We don't fear the thoughts. We don't fear the mind. Listen to that still small voice. What I do is I have a conversation with those beliefs. I may say, what is another way I could look at this? And sure enough, an answer arises. You could do this with another person. You could do this with yourself. Clarity arises when you accept that there is a way for clarity by being open to the possibility that you could see it clearly. Being open to the possibility. The easiest way that I found to be open to the possibility is to be in the flow. Be as you are. Number 3, separation. So this actually brought a lot of clarity to Matthew 10:16, in which it said, "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves." Knowing that your true self is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, If anything does not appear that way, we know that it is an appearance of past belief identification. And we can be still in that moment and know that I am, and thus release identification to that belief, through which, by doing so, the experience changes. So in the separation phase, we find what is authentic and true. We experience what is referred to as discernment. We think for ourselves. We think clearly. If anything appears that seems to generate doubt, if someone says something and you begin to doubt that still small voice, upon introspection, you realize that that person is revealing the doubt identified with. Maybe the doubt spawns from a belief that another person knows more than your still small voice. That inner voice, the voice of God. I like how Florence Scovel Shinn said it one time. Prayer is you telephoning to God, and intuition is God telephoning to you. When we discussed Abd Allah, Teacher Healer by Walter C. Lanyon, he referred to it as God speaking through that still small voice. And that still small voice speaks of vivid clarity and eventually becomes the only voice that you listen to. So what was challenging in the earlier stages to listen to that still small voice, because I would look around to this world and based on identification of past beliefs that were not helpful, I would believe that another person had an answer that did not feel resonant to my true way of being. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And I don't blame the other person. It was identification to a particular belief that resulted in me not listening to that still small voice and trying to believe something that I would try to get myself to believe. And even if at times I would get myself to believe it, it would not work out ideally because it didn't feel authentic. Then I acknowledged that it was actually a past belief playing out. The past belief playing out is that this means if a person has this credential, that credential, they are a perceived authoritative figure in a complete way. Yes, they may be authoritative and have information regarding a particular topic that can be helpful. But does that mean that everything they say is completely helpful? If you take a particular philosophy or something and identify with that philosophy or belief system without questioning it. Well, if it was resonant with me, then I understand. Yet, I would find with whatever belief system, whatever philosophy, there were some things in there that I didn't feel were authentic to my true way of being. My symbolic understandings of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And that's totally fine. So that's what occurs on the separation phase. And now consider this as we're going through this. This is cyclical. So I've been going through this on each journey, whatever the vision may be that we're actualizing it. And mind is further purified. And as mind is purified, by simply relaxing into the flow, being as you are in relation to appearances. And as mentioned, if the belief is deeply identified with autosuggestion, clear it up, and it's easier to remain in your flow. And it's okay if another belief is brought to awareness that was subconscious that you were not aware of before. For example, let's say someone builds a business in their 20s. They build it up to a certain degree of success, and they're identified with a belief in relation to age. They say that when they're in their 20s, they have all this energy and they're able to do it in their 20s. Yet when someone is in their 40s, it's significantly harder and stressful. So let's say they're in their 40s now and they decide to build their next business. When they were in their 20s, the belief that was when they were in their 40s, building a business is significantly harder, was not activated because they were identified with the age of 20 or 20s. Now, when they move into that identification of the age of 40 or 40s, that belief, which was dormant, is activated. So now, as they're experiencing life in what we could say is their 40s, they're experiencing it as tired, stressed, or whatever beliefs that they associate to the age. Those are only beliefs playing out. How do I know? Well, I have more energy. I do more things, accomplish way more things, easier, faster than ever before. And what I'm doing now, if I did what I'm doing now when I was in my 20s, I saw myself as being tired at that time because I had different beliefs that I was identified with at that time. And so that was resulting in the experiences of being tired, stressed out, and frustrated. And now, having not identified with beliefs regarding age in relation to energy levels and what I can accomplish, I don't experience it. And having released whatever those beliefs were that I was identified with in my 20s, I experience having more energy now. I experience from the moment I wake up, flow state. In my morning routine, flow state. During my workday, flow state. At my end-of-day activities, whatever they may be, snowboarding, hanging out with friends, traveling, whatever. Next, we have conjunction. So this is where we reconcile what appears as seeming confusion, as confusion is generated within, and contradiction, as contradiction is generated within in relation to the appearances, or seeming uncertainty, which uncertainty is generated within, and the ability to look at alternative viewpoints and find the accurate equilibrium that is in harmony in relation to our vision and our true way of being: love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. There's an emergence of clarity. There's a harmony with what appears as opposites. This is why I tend to say a lot, the answer is it depends. A person might say, should I do it this way or should I do it that way? My response is usually, the answer is depends. Let's explore it. And it could be this way or that way, or it could be a variation between the two, or it could be something else. Having that wonderful conversation, we explore and we find it, a nice ratio. So then a person doesn't experience the conflict where they once experienced conflict. Also in relationships, the biases. I am this way, this other person's that way, and we clash. Well, is the clash the result of identification to dichotomous space beliefs, black and white thinking? Or what if we release identification to that? Well, what ends up happening is you discover a nice harmonious way. So how does this play out, for example, in business? Is I have some things that I do that are routine-based. I consistently do them. Certainly I release 3 videos a week here. And then there are things that I do very spontaneously. There are some things that are exploratory that I do in business. There's a number of initiatives that I do that are exploratory. When I started this channel, it was the same thing. It was an inspiration to put out my first video. Then it became something that became the majority of what I was focused on. The same was with other initiatives, for example, when I had my IT business. One could say the core initiatives were the IT services for the office clients. Yet I also started creating point-of-sale systems for restaurants and retail stores. That started to grow. I was doing a little bit of consulting on the side within a certain amount of ratio. I didn't feel like I was spreading myself too thin because the answer is it depends. They all contributed to each other. The point-of-sale system business ended up generating clients for Office IT, and the Office IT segment ended up generating point-of-sale system clients. Also generated consulting clients. And so the answer is depends. And this is why when I teach, when I consult, I know that I have a lot of experience building businesses since 2009. I've also worked with thousands of businesses and helped them grow their business, and also been exposed to thousands of businesses and various different business models, marketing strategies, techniques, etc. And I've seen many ways that work. So when someone says, what's the best way? We explore it. We find the best way with them. Because the answer is it depends. It's flow, essentially. A harmony between divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Lateral being. being as you are. Whatever arises, next step, challenge or opportunity, however we perceive it, however the person perceives it, that's fine. In that moment, be still and know that I am. And clarity arises. Then we have fermentation. Now, as mentioned, this is cyclical, and also I experience this in a mix and match kind of way, so it doesn't necessarily happen in sequence. Some might experience it as a sequence. There's the fermentation, where we deepen our relationship with that inner voice. As mentioned, the still, small voice. We listen to ourselves and trust ourselves. And in relation to conjunction, for example, when it comes to relationships, we listen, understand, and have compassion in relationships with others, whether it be business relationships, personal relationships. There's a heightened degree of emotional intelligence. There's intuition and accurate thinking as well. Yet it's all harmoniously related and brought to a nice harmony, even if one could think of it as, because that's just a belief that the mind is just dichotomous in nature. The mind is blank, it's pure. We put in mind beliefs that result in dichotomous thinking. And that could result in people harming themselves because they have not accepted themselves to that degree. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And it appears in how they relate to their thoughts, their emotions, their behaviors, their mind. And when a person relates lovingly to thoughts, emotions, behaviors, mind, there's no inharmonious identification. And then it's easy for them to choose the thoughts that are in harmony and in contribution to their vision. It's easy for them to allow the emotions to release. And they notice that also it happens automatically. And if guidance is sought, they more and more so find that guidance within. Now, fermentation can also be looked at as putrefaction. And so putrefaction or fermentation is referred to as the release, although sometimes you might hear the word decay or the releasing of, in the Bible, it's referred to as the old man, which then arises the true self, which essentially means that anything that is inauthentic, the inauthentic beliefs are released to a deeper degree in which then a more refined understanding, we can say, know thyself, a refined understanding, acknowledging that you transcend the beliefs in mind, you transcend the mind, as in you have a mind, and you can place in mind that which is related to your true nature, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. This results in relating to the various experiences on the day-to-day journey to actualizing your vision, ideally, and also remaining in your flow, being flow, as we said in Tuesday's video. This is sometimes split into putrefaction and spiritualization. Putrefaction is the releasing of that which we can refer to as the former self or beliefs in relation to what that I am was associated to and thus appearing as. Remember, every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that I have given unto you, as I said unto Moses. I am that I am. What appears as the individual appears to pray to that I am, which in the Kabbalion is the all mind. Prayer in this context is thinking feelingly from the premise of being. So then it makes sense when we read Matthew 6:6. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. You plant in your mind the thoughts of your true way of being in relation to the appearances. And also, as a result of it, mind purification. Release identification to the beliefs that are not true in harmony, that have been identified with, stored in the subconscious mind. So it says, then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. The Father is that I am. That I am, that is the all. Everything is the Father, the all. The Father appears and appears as all that appears and animates all that appears through your mind. As stated in the Hermetica, there were two gifts bestowed upon humanity. They were mind and speech, and that those two gifts are equal to immortality. That means immortality, God, appears through mind as the outer expressions of mind via your inner speech, the thoughts you plant. And so in relation to what appears, you have the opportunity to discern, which discernment to a higher degree naturally arises by simply being as you are, by simply being on the journey to actualizing your vision. And if something appears, which we can call a flow restrictor or a flow breaker that gets you out of the flow, it's not the appearance that gets you out of the flow or restricts your flow. It's the belief identification in relation to the appearances. That I am, which has been associated to particular belief, appears as that. So now we're more conscious of what we're imagining, and thus as a result of that, we reimagine it, or you could say revise it, which we actually talk about that recently, which revision helps tremendously going through these experiences. I'll link in the description of the video where we discuss it. And so what's happening here is we're releasing the illusion of control and allowing God to do everything. You've already committed to your vision, and you're allowing God, by being as you are, that results in what I refer to many times as the flow-based journey to actualizing your vision, living meditation. So wonderfully, you get to experience actualizing your vision. You also get to experience the true nature of thyself, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, on the journey to actualizing the vision, more so each day in increasing frequency on a continuous basis. Mind is purified by the simple act of anytime your attention appears to go in a direction that you wouldn't consider to be ideal, release identification by bringing your attention back on what it is that is related to your vision. I also discussed this extensively in the Tuesday video of how I do this, and I'll link in the description to that video. So then we have dissolution. It's the assimilation of the realizations in and as life experiences. So in alchemy, the inner and outer is seen as one. It's experienced as one. It's not considered separate. It's experienced as one. That's one of the reasons why in alchemy we say embrace the chaos, don't run away from it, move towards life experience, and experience that oneness with life. This is very helpful for the entrepreneur, the creative, the athlete, anyone who genuinely desires, rather than a fragmented experience of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, an integrated experience, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. That is alchemy. There's only God, and only God appears and appears to animate all that appears. That's another way of saying all is one. All is one. The inner and outer is one. Although we refer to inner and outer because the prayer or the relating to experience or the autosuggestions are happening within mind, and you could say them out loud if you would like. You capture the feeling within of being that which you are, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And it externalizes, it manifests as the outer experiences of life. And also one of the effects of the spiritual alchemy journey is a person really values personal experience. They realize that, you know what, others may appear to have different experiences and they relate to their inner world in a particular way. That's fine. This is the relationship that I have with God. Certainty. And from that clarity emerges the intuition, the still small voice, the thinking accurately in relation to what appears. And so in dissolution, there's assimilation of the realizations as life experiences. Then we have coagulation, oneness with the divine, oneness with the divine. The inner and outer world is experienced as one. As mentioned, the alchemists, inner and outer as one. Ultimate realization, ultimate reality, inner and outer as one. Having known thyself and actualized thyself and continuing to do so each day, I experience this as a continuum. There's also what Maslow referred to in later stages, he referred to it as self-transcendence. So in the earlier stages, he had self-actualization at the top of the pyramid. Then he had self-transcendence, which means that all is experienced as one. All is experienced as one. For example, in our Neville Goddard conversations, we refer to this as anytime we exercise our imagination lovingly on behalf of another, we are actually mediating God to them. There's a profound oneness with that I am. I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. For I imagine what that appears as. Only God appears and animates all that appears through mind. Mind and speech, the two gifts given to humanity, which are equal to that immortality. Some refer to this as the realization that there is no separation in the absolute reality. It can only appear that way for experience. And so the genuine desire of the individual that appears to the all is to live that experience of the all as the outer expressions of life, which play out then as wonderful, harmonious relationships, wonderful business, wonderful lifestyle, what we do, what we say, whatever it is, our creative expression contributes to the well-being and harmony of others, because we know that truly there only is wholeness, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And thus what appears as the individual self realizes that it is a conduit of divine expression. So I like how it was said in John 5:30. It said, I can of myself do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek not mine own will, but the will of the Father which hath sent me. So we got into a lengthy discussion here and more nuances in relation to the spiritual alchemy process. As mentioned, I've done a number of discussions on the spiritual alchemy process, all based on my own personal experiences and realizations as a result of simply committing to a vision, seeing it all the way to fruition, and doing it again and again and again, being in flow, being as I am on the journey to actualizing, and in relation to what arises, experiencing life as a living meditation, keeping my attention on the vision, thinking from the end, and relating to what appears ideally from the premise of being, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You can say, that I am, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. All individuals that appear are forms of expression of that one cause substance and appear as wonderful, harmonious relationships, the phenomena of life. True self-acceptance is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, experienced as living meditation, being in flow, being as flow, being the flow, in and as all that appears as the journey of actualizing self as the outer expressions of life. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.